Welcome to our weekly program, The Inside Story of Chabad in America through the Mindel Archives. In the next few programs, I want to share with you a very basic book written by Rabbi Nissim Mindel, the secretary of the Rebbe, with many hagos, many notations that the Rebbe did. Now, as I mentioned in the previous programs, that whatever book Rabbi Mindel wrote, the Rebbe wrote notations. Means the Rebbe worked with Rabbi Mindel. Articles, the Rebbe wrote notation. He wrote articles in the newspapers. The Rebbe looked it over, and the Rebbe wrote notations. Every function that he went many times. He was a speaker in all the Torah, he was a speaker in colleges, YU, and overseas, and everything he wrote down, and the Rebbe says, I want to see it, and the Rebbe made hagoys, he made notations. But this book, My Prayer, is a book that he wrote many notations. It's like it's the Rebbe's Sefer. So before I do the book with you, I want to give you a little background. The purpose of the Frierdiker Rebbe coming to America, and he brought with him Rabbi Mindel and Rabbi Chadakov in 1940, is because, just like we learned in this Parsha Lech Lecho, the Eibishter said to Avram Avinu, Lech Lecho meyartzecho, go out into the world and spread Getlichkeit, godliness. And this is why the Rebbe, the Frierdiker Rebbe, came to America, and he asked Rabbi Mindel, as we once said, that we have to open Chassidus to the entire world. He told Rabbi Chadakov and Rabbi Mindel on the boat that we're coming to America. I mentioned that, and America is a piece of ice, and we have to break the ice of America. He also asked him, Rabbi Mindel, if he should put on his trimal. Rabbi Mindel says, Haglai Chazach. So, as you know, Rabbi Mindel, he wrote everything down. So one of the things that he wrote, that when they came to America, they were, I think there was the third week, they came to Greystone Hotel. We once had a program about that. And then there was the second week, a third week. I don't know where they were. I don't know whether there was a Farbrengen or not. So the Frierdiker Rebbe said to them, Rabbi Mindel and Rabbi Chadakov were there, and the Frierdiker Rebbe said to them that America is called Am Reiko. It's an empty nation, a kaltkeit, coldness. And he said that America is a midbar shmoma. It's a desert. America has nechoshim ve'akrabim, snakes and scorpions. Like it says in the Torah, I guess, midbar hagodel v'hanoira nochos soro ve'akrov. Now, and then the Rebbe, the Frierdiker Rebbe, put his hand on his forehead. That's what he writes, and he started to sing the niggin. With kavona, the niggin tzama lecha nafshi, kama lecha besari, be'eretz tziyah ve'yoyev beli moyim. And he said then that America has verim dikeh, that's the word he wrote, verim dikeh rabbonim, rabbis that are warm rabbis. Those days, it's not like now, Baruch Hashem, we have yeshivas, we have Talmud Torahs. Those days, I guess, it was Shmira Shabbos was hard. The rabbonim gave chsherim and treifa meat. That was verim dikeh rabbonim. And this is what this was the third week, I think. I don't know whether, again, this was a Farbrengen or this was when they were there on Shabbos meal. I don't know. Now here I want to add something. The Rebbe, our Rebbe, once said You know that a poisonous snake, when it bites a person, chas v'sholem, the body becomes hot and the person dies. A scorpion bites a person, the body becomes cold and the person dies. So the Rebbe mentioned a Mishnah. The Mishnah says that when a person stands Shemona Esrei, you're not allowed to move. And all of a sudden a snake goes around your feet, don't worry about it. Continue davening. What if a scorpion, an akrav, goes around your feet? The Mishnah says, then you have to stop, because it's much worse an akrav than a nochash. And the Rebbe explained in Ruchnius that when a person stands Shemona Esrei, which is the highest level in davening, and all of a sudden a snake falls into him, means machshava zoros, desires, taivas, not good thoughts, and he becomes hot, and he thinks about it. Don't worry, continue davening. By davening, you'll change this heat of taivas to the heat of kedusha. But what if an akrov falls into your head? Kaltkite, apathy. I don't care. Apathy. See, I just don't care. It's much worse than a nochash. Then you have to stop and think. So the Rebbe said that in America, the Frierdiker Rebbe said then that there is a midbar, shmama, there is nechoshim, and there is akrabim. Different people. But it seems from here that a akrav is much worse than a nochash. So the Frierdiker Rebbe, when he came, he was waiting for the Ramash. The Rebbe, our Rebbe, was called the Ramash then. He came in 41, a year later. And he was waiting for him to come to open the world, America. So he gave Rabbi Chadakov whatever Rabbi Chadakov has to do. And he told Rabbi Mindel what he has to do, and he told the Rebbe what he has to do. And Chadakov had his job, and the Rebbe and Rabbi Mindel, he began, and this is how Chabad began, is publications. He gave them responsibility. So he gave Rabbi Mindel, he told him to do the Tanya in English, to translate. That was the beginning. The Talks and Tales started, and this he worked, Rabbi Mindel, with the Rebbe together. The memoirs, the commandments, and other things. And this is the beginning of, there were no publications then. There was no Olomeinu, there was nothing. So this is in when the Rebbe, he was waiting for the Rebbe, the Ramash to come. Also the Rebbe then worked in the Navy Yard, and I think the way it says over here, that the Frierdiker Rebbe mentioned originally, I don't understand, that he wanted the Rebbe to work in a printing place. But the end is he worked in a Navy Yard. Whatever it is, I don't understand that. But in any case, this is how it started, Chabad in America. So one of the most important publications was Talks and Tales. Talks and Tales is like, it's like a sichos from the Rebbe. And there is Hagoyes and Hagoyes and Hagoyes and Talks and Tales. Every month, a column was my prayer. This is how my prayer, the book, my prayer, is not that Rabbi Mindel wrote a separate book, my prayer. My prayer was a collection of Talks and Tales with the Hagoyes. The Gallery of the Great that we just gave out a couple months ago that comes from Talks and Tales. Then there was a column of science in Yoni Diyayme, Yomim Tovim, Halachas, things to remember. Let's visit other countries, and Wonder of Nature. This was every single month, and the Rebbe and the Frierdiker Rebbe looked everything. They looked over. And this was by them the most important, the beginning publication, Talks and Tales. So Rabbi Mindel preserved the Rebbe's notations and his writings, and he made a book out of it. The Talks and Tales, and I once mentioned, had Wonder of Nature, Wunder von Natur. And the Frierdiker Rebbe told Rabbi Mindel, when ich lein Talks and Tales, Wunder von Natur, kommt mir zu Yerushalayim. When I read the Wonder of Nature, I get Yerushalayim. Can you imagine what the Talks and Tales, what the Wonder of Nature that's writing? It's mamish holy. When Rabbi Mindel finished the Tanya, which the Frierdiker Rebbe told him, and he did it with the help of the Rebbe, I think it was 1962, he took the Tanya, the first copy, and he gave the Rebbe, our Rebbe. And the Rebbe took it with both hands, and my father-in-law said that his face lit up, and he said that there was a time of the Sputnik. He says, "Mimachta tumul," they make a whole tumul of the Sputnik. The world should make a tumul that the Tanya in English came out. This is the tumul that the people should make. When Rabbi Mindel finished my prayer, he gave it to the Rebbe, the first copy. The Rebbe looks at the cover. He looks at the cover a long time. Then the Rebbe turns to him and he says, "How come he didn't write Dr. Nissen Mindel? He just wrote Nissen Mindel." So, whoever knew Rabbi Mindel, he was a very humble person. Rabbi Mindel, he wasn't a politician at all. And he was a straight person, he was an emissaire person, and he didn't want to write a doctor. So he said, the Rebbe, I should write a doctor on myself. So the Rebbe said to him, it's not for you. You don't need it. But the world needs that I should say doctor, not you. This is what happened when he finished my prayer. So I once mentioned what I want to say today. I once mentioned something, and I want to say it again. And the reason I'm saying it again, because about a month ago there was a magazine that came out, and they wrote that again, which we mentioned that a couple years ago, that the Rebbetzin Chaim Mushke wrote the Wonder of Nature in Talks and Tales. Even though we already mentioned that this is not the case, she never wrote Talks and Tales. She was not a writer. She never wrote. She was an Isha Tzidkonius, no question. But she did not write the Wonder of Nature. And I want to tell you again, and I hope this magazine listens to this program. When the Rebbetzin passed away, my children were in elementary Besivke. So they came one day, and Rabbi Mindel was in this house. And they came and they said, we had an assembly that since the Rebbetzin wrote the Wonder of Nature, we have to review Chazer, Baal Peh, by heart, parts of Wonder of Nature. This is our project for the year. And I heard also in Detroit they did it, and other shluchim did it because of the Rebbetzin. Now, I know that Rabbi Mindel wrote it. I saw. So I couldn't understand. He did not answer. He didn't say anything. A few days later, we went over to him and said, listen, say something. I know you wrote it. So he tells us like this, and I want to get this straight, that I once met Reb Shalom Ber Gordon. Reb Shalom Ber Gordon was the son of Rabbi Yochanan Gordon. He was the Gabbai. He was a Rav in New Jersey. And Reb Shalom Ber Gordon asked me, he says, Reb Nissen, I read every month the Wonder of Nature. This is amazing. Who helps you? How can you do it yourself? So he says, my Rebbetzin helps me. Reb Shalom Ber didn't hear the word Rebbetzin. He used to teach in Besrivka in seminary. So he went to Besrivka and he said he heard from Rabbi Mindel that the Rebbetzin wrote it, but he didn't hear my Rebbetzin. So they know. I went to Besrifki afterwards and I told him that the Rebbetzin did not write it, that this was Rabbi. He said, yeah, but they still say it. They heard it from Rabbi Gordon. But he said, he meant my Rebbetzin. So here I want to straighten out that the Rebbetzin was Isha Tzidkonius. And as the Rebbe once said, and Rabbi Mindel wrote it down, one of the reasons that we don't make a hesped is because in Olam HaEmes is emes, true. When you make a hesped, when you speak milas about somebody, could be it's a mila, if it's, or maybe sometimes you speak too much or too little. So then it's not good for the neshama. So that's why we don't make a hesped. Because we talk Olam HaEmes. Emes is emes. True is true. Like somebody mentioned, a woman is pregnant, she's pregnant, and she can be a little pregnant, or she's pregnant, or she's not pregnant. Emes is emes, true is true. So therefore, to say that the Rebbetzin wrote it is not true, it's not so. And the Rebbetzin is a Isha Tzidkonius, and she was the daughter of the Frierdiker Rebbe, she was the wife of the Rebbe, she was an amazing woman, but she did not write the wonder of nature. I want to make that clear again. And here we learn sometimes I see and I hear people speaking this. Sometimes they say certain stories has to be accurate. Even the Rebbe, when the Rebbe said everything the Rebbe said is 100%. But the Rebbe many times said, I heard it from my shver. So any story that we say, we have to know it's 100% the way you heard it. So I just want to mention it because it came out of a magazine again saying that the Rebbetzin wrote The Wonder of Nature. In any case, so this is how the publication began. This is how it started with Talks and Tales. And then he wrote. Then he became also with letters he wrote. And the Rebbe gave him, the Frierdiker Rebbe gave him the copyright of the memoirs, a personal copyright of the memoirs was written by Rabbi Mindel. Over here I have that Rabbi Zalman Posner wrote the second Shar Yichud V'Amunah. So he said, if not Rabbi Mindel writing the Tanya, he couldn't have written Shar Yichud V'Amunah. So he was the first one, and this is why the Frierdiker Rebbe came, and this is how it started all the writing. So before we go into my prayer, I wanted to give you a Hakdama of how Chabad started with publications. I see we have no time to do my prayer. So Yom Hashem, next week we'll continue our weekly program. Thank you.